Hello there everyone, and welcome to my very first survival build for Fallout 4. If you've not yet played on survival difficulty, then this is a great build to start you off, effectively combating the challenges you will face on the highest difficulty, while still providing an enjoyable and challenging experience. The loner did not have a good time within the army. Being drafted in to fight the communist threat pushed him directly to the front lines. With only a small amount of training and no real idea what his objective actually was, he found himself sitting in the back of a truck, shoulder to shoulder with others who looked as frightened as he felt. A terrifying figure of a man shouted at him and the others to get out of the truck and ready their weapons. Apparently they were heading straight into the action, to fight off an advancing Chinese platoon. As he was letting everything around him sink in, he realised that his legs had started moving in time with the rest of the squad, all of them running forward towards the enemy location. As they ran through the rubble of a battlefield, the sound of a single shot rang out, and the man standing next to him fell to the ground, a hole in his chest spewing forth blood and slicking the ground around him. The squad dived into cover to protect themselves as best as they could against the oncoming hail of fire, but as more and more bullets began to fly through the air, more of the American soldiers fell. Cowering behind a broken wall, the loner dropped his rifle and held his knees close to his chest, hoping to make himself a smaller target and avoid getting hurt. The leader of the squad was shouting for them to return fire, but the loner knew that he would be shot if he moved from his cover. As the rest of the men shouldered their rifles and attempted to fight back, the loner simply stayed where he was, fear leaving him helpless to move. As he predicted, the rest of his squad were falling far faster than the opposition, and the leader of their squad began running over to the loner. Just before he made it to the cover, he took a round to his side and fell to the ground. The loner's eyes fixed on him as the man began coughing up blood and pleading for the fear-filled individual to drag him behind the cover. Instead of agreeing to this request, the loner shakes his head and starts scrambling backwards, trying to get away from the terrifying visage before him. Anger passes over the dying man's face, and he reaches for his sidearm, calling the loner a coward and aiming his pistol at the man. Instinct takes over, and the loner reaches for his own weapon, the pair simultaneously firing. A hot, searing wave of pain washes over him as the loner feels the bullet tear through his skin and shatter the bones in his shoulder. Through the haze of tears, he makes out the figure of the man who shot him, his head now a mess where a bullet had passed through, causing grey matter to ooze forth from the hole. The mixture of pain and shock of what he has done cause the loner to pass out, and he wakes up sometime later in a hospital bed. Over the course of his recovery, he is asked by several high-ranking military officials to tell them what took place on the battlefield, but refuses to speak. Once his shoulder is replaced, he is discharged from the army, leaving him to adjust to his new prosthesis as a civilian. After this, he will go on to live a fairly normal life, although he will never speak to anyone about his time in the military. Once the bombs fall and he enters cryosleep, he will be forced to relive the time he spent in the army, causing his mind to crumble and fear to consume him. When he leaves the vault, he will have to live with this fear every day, doing whatever he can to survive, and looking to any source he can for salvation and safety. The loner has Strength 2, Perception 4, Endurance 6, Charisma 3, Intelligence 6, Agility 7 and Luck 1. Having a low strength will reduce our overall carry weight, but fortunately we will be able to easily combat this down the line. A perception of 4 not only makes VATS a little more reliable, but means that, once we get the bobblehead, we can get an incredibly helpful perk. Endurance is our second highest stat, sitting at 6. Not only is this going to give us plenty of health to keep us alive, but it will also help to slightly reduce the chance of us getting sick too often, reducing how often we will have to use up antibiotics. Charisma is at 3 primarily for the purpose of perks, but it will also help to keep us stocked up with plenty of caps, and to occasionally pass speech checks. Intelligence is our tied second highest stat, also sitting at 6. This is going to be helpful for levelling, but is raised so we can have access to the best variety of modding perks. Our highest stat is Agility at 7. This will work great with our mid-tier Perception and Endurance, letting us get plenty of hits and VATS, or sprint for several seconds without worry. Last of all is the dump stat of the build, Luck. Although plenty of perks in the tree are useful, none of them were really needed that badly, so I felt the points were better spent on the other stats. The essential perks of the build are Lone Wanderer, Sneak, Life Giver, Ninja, Gun Nut, and Rifleman. Lone Wanderer is the critical perk of this build, and makes us all round just better. I only had the first 2 rounds, but this meant I was taking 30% less damage and had 100 extra points of carry capacity. At level 40 you can also take the 3rd rank, which boosts your damage by 25%. These bonuses are great in the base game, but in survival mode they're just ludicrous. Tie this in with the fact that companions are arguably worse in survival, and it makes this perk a no-brainer to prioritise. At level 12 you will be wanting to get the 3rd rank of Sneak. Once you do, you will no longer set off floor-based traps or mines. When you're playing on survival and have spent the past hour looking for a bed, the last thing you want to happen is to step on a mine and be forced to redo everything once more. Arguably the 4th and 5th rank of this perk aren't really needed, as your stealth should be decent anyway, but the first 3 most certainly are. I have confessed my love for the Life Giver perk before, but that was just in the base game. In survival mode, an extra 60 hit points and constant health regeneration by level 20 is insane. You don't want to be relying on stim packs on survival mode, as they dehydrate you, so being able to passively heal is one of the best bonuses you can possibly hope to have. I'm sure at this point everyone knows how powerful the Ninja perk is. Stay hidden, take your time with a shot, and watch the enemy drop from a single round. Gun Nut is an incredibly helpful perk for ensuring your weapons are dealing as much damage as possible. I got my hands on a combat rifle and combat shotgun at around level 7, and by the time I hit level 13 and have the 2nd rank of Gun Nut, these weapons were able to win me every fight with ease, thanks to the modifications I added to them. Last in essential is Rifleman. I personally feel that rifles are, overall, the best weapon class in Fallout 4. They offer great damage and range, letting us easily take down any enemies we come across. Pistols may have a lighter weight, but the trade for damage isn't really worth it. As long as you're careful with the weight and don't travel around with 10 different rifles, you shouldn't have to worry. Conversely, automatic weapons and big guns cause a bit more of a problem with weight. Each of them require you to dedicate a lot more weight to ammo, and although they can dish out a lot more damage, we can use sneak attacks to counter this effectively. The additional perks for this build are Fortune Finder, Scrapper, Demolition Expert, Armourer, and Science. Fortune Finder and Scrapper are both perks that I invested a single rank into very early on. By looting every container you find and scrapping every weapon you come across, you will find that you're never running short on caps or junk. I wouldn't worry too much about adding additional ranks to either one later on, but taking the first of each right at the start of the game will pay off so much in the later levels, providing you keep utilising them throughout playing. Demolition Expert is probably the most controversial perk in this setup. The problem with explosives in survival mode is that they kill you incredibly easily. Taking Demo Expert will increase the damage, and at rank 3, boost the radius of them. This means that you're even more likely to accidentally kill yourself with your own explosives, which is not the greatest way to go. However, the 2nd rank of a perk gives a throwing arc, and this is incredibly helpful, as it not only will help you line up your shot, but means that you can see much more clearly if there's something that's going to clip your explosive and cause it to detonate prematurely. The 2nd rank of this perk was the highest one I took, and I'm not certain if I want to get the 3rd rank, as it is a real risk, but the first 2 are too good to pass up. The Armourer and Science perks are both great for improving our equipment, but I didn't take them until fairly late on. It wasn't until I got my suit of T60 power armor from the Brotherhood that I was at all worried about these perks. Early on you will be relying mostly on ballistic weaponry, so Science won't be needed for modding most of your guns, and if you're constantly modding your early armor for minor improvements, you will likely find yourself running low on a few components when you want to mod your late game armor if you're not careful. For me personally, I was also going to wait to get the Strength bobblehead before taking the ranks of Armourer, but in the end I saved up enough perks to instantly go up to Strength 3, and all bar the last rank of Armourer, as the final bit of levelling for my character. This character will want to join up with both the Brotherhood of Steel and the Institute. These 2 factions will help make travelling around the Commonwealth so much easier. Survival mode removes fast travel, but the Brotherhood will allow you to buy Vertibird signal grenades to fly around the wastes, and the Institute lets you fast travel to a central point in the map. Combine these two together and you will find yourself having a much easier time moving around the map and no longer have to do overly complicated routes every time you leave your base. In terms of roleplaying, the loner will want to side with these factions in order to make life easier for himself. He wants to ensure his safety, and the Brotherhood will initially appear to be the safest faction to side with, being a military power with a giant airship and all. However, once he travels into the Institute and sees how comfortable their lives are underground, he will crave their lifestyle, having had to survive for weeks, if not months or years, out in the radiation-filled wastes. Speaking of radiation, you will also want to side with the Children of Atom if you have the Far Harbor DLC. Seeing the world destroyed by nuclear bombs will show the loner firsthand the power that Atom wields, and when he encounters the Children of Atom for the first time, he will be relieved to know that others understand in the same way he does. Although he is not immune to radiation as many of Atom's chosen are, he will still pray every night that Atom will grant him the same boon one day. As we are relying heavily on the Lone Wanderer perk when playing this build, we won't want to be travelling with any companions. We could travel with Dogmeat, but I find that he normally is more of a hindrance than a help. That being said, companions can still be helpful. I would recommend using them primarily to defend any settlements you are regularly using, as they will do a much better job fighting than standard settlers do. I used Hangman's Alley as my main base, and I had a handful of companions there who not only helped defend it when it came under attack, but who would even join in on nearby fights, meaning I could always draw enemies closer to my settlement in order to give me an easier fight. The main weapons I was relying on with this build were a suppressed powerful sniper rifle, a recoil compensated calibrated powerful combat rifle, and the Experiment 18A. The sniper rifle is ideal for picking off individual enemies from a distance, helping ensure you don't get swarmed too often. A suppressor on this means we shouldn't end up getting detected too often, and we'll still be able to approach without getting shot at too much after we're done sniping. The combat rifle will be your go-to gun. It's an incredibly versatile weapon with no major downsides to it. With a reflex sight you can hit enemies at mid-range or close range with ease, and the hip fire isn't even that terrible. It uses .45 ammo, which you should be finding in droves once you hit the mid-game, meaning you don't have to worry too much about ammo consumption. Although I didn't have a suppressor on my combat rifle, it may prove to be a good choice to add this on to make the weapon quieter, and help you stay hidden for longer. The Experiment 18A is a great panic button weapon. If you're getting charged by a Deathclaw or had a horde of super mutants appear out of nowhere, then whip this beast out and go to town. Fast firing, dealing a ton of damage and disintegrating your foes to get you some free nuclear material, this gun is an absolute powerhouse. There are two downsides to it however. Being an energy weapon means it doesn't have the option for a suppressor, so it's going to get you noticed. Secondly, it uses plasma cartridges as ammo, and you're not likely to be swimming in these. A fast firing weapon like this will eat through them fast if you're not careful, so watch your ammo reserves and only use the weapon when you really need to. The armour I was wearing while playing this build was the Destroyer's chest piece, Destroyer's left leg, Commando helmet, a deep-pocketed Brotherhood of Steel combat armour right leg, a bolstering polished metal right arm, an Assassin's microcarbon synth left arm, Dirty Army fatigues, and Patrolman sunglasses. The Destroyer's chest piece has the Assassin's legendary effect, reducing the damage we take from humans. This is great for keeping us alive whenever we come across raiders, and due to being combat armour, it will give us half-decent resistances too. The Destroyer's left leg will increase our movement speed, and this effect may end up saving your life a fair few times. It can let you close the distance with enemies who are relying on throwables, and it can help you run away from anything you don't want to get too close to, such as suiciders. The Commando helmet is going to help reduce our VATS costs by 10%. Personally, I don't feel this is a particularly amazing effect, but legendary variants of helmets don't drop, so this was going to be the best option available to me, so I took it. The rest of the overlaid armour are a mix of the best pieces I found from enemies, or was able to loot. You'll want to optimise your character as much as you can with legendary armour, but how it turns out will all depend on the drops you get. Aesthetically, try to keep him looking like a rough around the edges soldier, by ensuring you have mostly combat armour equipped. The Dirty Army fatigues will help with this look, whilst also providing us with an additional point of strength and agility. Likewise, the patrolman sunglasses will give us an added point of perception. While playing this build, I wore a very specific suit of power armour that I've dubbed the Survivor Suit. The setup is designed specifically to help counter the challenges that survival mode will throw at you as effectively as possible. The suit consists of a scrubbing Prism T60E helmet, Prism T60E right and left arm, cleansing Prism T60E torso, and calibrated Prism T60E right and left legs. Everything wants to be upgraded to the highest defensive capabilities possible, hence the Prism shielding and it all being Model E. Once you hit armour or rank 4, you will obviously want to upgrade to Model F though. The rad scrubbers on the helmet remove radiation from food and water, meaning you can eat and drink whilst out and about with one less worry, ensuring you don't enter a fight whilst thirsty or hungry. The blood cleanser on the chest reduces the chance to get addicted from drugs, allowing us to use them a little safer if we ever need to. You'll come across plenty of dangerous situations in survival mode, so chems may occasionally be a necessity for survival. Later on, I would recommend possibly switching over to the medic pump or emergency protocols however, as I find these are great safety nets to help ensure you can stay alive if you ever get in over your head. The calibrated shocks on the legs are going to improve our carry weight, ensuring we aren't having to worry too much about what we can and can't pick up. I had a total carry weight of 445 in the suit, which is ludicrously high for a character in survival mode, and is over quadruple what I started the build at. The Loner plays as a stealth-based long-range rifleman. Staying hidden will not only keep you alive, but let you land sneak attacks for triple damage, helping you take down most enemies in a single shot. If you do get discovered though, you'll want to be fast with that trigger finger, rapidly taking down any approaching enemies as quickly as you can, to ensure they don't deal too much damage to you. Whilst you're in power armour, you can take a fair few hits, but outside of a suit you will be relying more on stealth, otherwise you'll see just how quickly even basic raiders can kill you. Thanks to the perk selection, we're quite a well-rounded character, able to take and dish out a fair bit of damage whilst also being able to carry out the day-to-day tasks of Fallout with a little more ease. There isn't anything too wilder out there with this build, as I wanted my first survival build to be a fairly straightforward one, which gives everyone a nice and easy way to jump into this mode without also having to worry about learning an entirely new combat style. Thank you all very much for watching my first survival mode build for Fallout 4. If you enjoyed the video then don't forget to give it a like, as it helps me know that you want more builds like this. If you have any tips for survival mode you want to share, then leave them down in the comments below, and if you aren't already, make sure that you subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on, so you get to watch all of my great content. Speaking of great content, I started my Fallout 4 Realism Mode challenge run yesterday, in which I'm doing a permadeath survival mode run of the game with no HUD, VATS or settlement mode. If you haven't seen that already, then click on the on-screen link to start watching.